What if I told you that one of history's most infamous queens, the woman blamed for a nation's ruin and dragged beneath the blade of the guillotine, carried with her to the very end a secret that could have rewritten the fate of France? What if behind the glittering masks of Versailles there burned a forbidden passion, whispered in corridors, hidden in letters, written in invisible ink, between the Queen of France and a foreign count who should never have dared to love her? This is the story of Marie Antoinette and Count Axel von Fersen, a story of desire and danger, loyalty and betrayal, a love affair rumored to have shaped revolutions and haunted history. The year was 1770. Versailles shone like a jewel in the French crown, a palace of mirrors and gardens, fountains and gold. From the Hall of Mirrors, where sunlight fractured into 1,000 beams, to the salons where nobles played at politics and intrigue, the palace dazzled, but it also suffocated. Into this world came a 14-year-old girl from Austria. Her name, Maria Antonia. She had been raised in the Viennese court, a daughter of Empress Maria Theresa, accustomed to music, laughter, and family warmth. But now her name was stripped away, her Austrian gowns burned, her hair cut, her body inspected by strangers. She became Marie Antoinette, Dauphine of France. Her marriage was meant to seal an alliance between Austria and France. Her husband, Louis Auguste, the Dauphin, was awkward, shy, and painfully reserved. He preferred locks and keys to dancing and conversation. He avoided her touch, and in a court where every eye watched, where gossip spread faster than candle flames, their failure to consummate the marriage became the cruelest of amusements. She was mocked, ridiculed, whispered about in salons and pamphlets. Years passed, no heir was born, and though she smiled and danced, behind the jewels and gowns, she was desperately alone. Then, in 1774, fate shifted. The old king, Louis XV, died, and Louis Auguste became Louis XV. Marie Antoinette, barely 19, became queen. She was young, beautiful, glittering with charm, but utterly unprepared for the burden of a crown. At first, she threw herself into pleasures: masked balls, card games, jewels, silk gowns that defied the stiff traditions of the French court. She laughed too loudly, gambled too recklessly, danced too freely. To her critics, she was no queen, but a frivolous girl who cared nothing for the dignity of the crown. And yet, beneath the frivolity was hunger for affection, for companionship, for someone who would see her not as a pawn, not as a queen, but as a woman. That someone arrived in the form of Count Axel von Fersen. He was Swedish, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that caught and held. He had traveled through Europe, fought alongside Washington in the American Revolution, seen worlds beyond the cloistered court. He was a man of discipline, intelligence, and unshakable loyalty. And when he arrived at Versailles, he did not fawn as the others did. He observed. He listened. He saw. Marie Antoinette noticed him at a masquerade, where masks hid identities and hearts beat freer. They danced. And in that dance, perhaps for the first time in her young reign, she felt truly alive. At first, it was only glances, a smile that lingered too long, a word spoken too softly. But soon there were letters, careful, coded, some written in invisible ink. Historians would debate their meanings for centuries. Were they declarations of love? Pleas for help? Both? What cannot be denied is this: from that moment, Count Axel von Fersen became a constant presence in her life. He was her confidant, her protector, perhaps her lover. The French people saw none of this. What they saw was a queen who spent while they starved. They saw her gamble at cards, wear extravagant gowns, and build the Petit Trianon, her private retreat at Versailles, where she escaped the suffocating etiquette of court. They called her Madame Deficit. They whispered she was unfaithful. They spread obscene pamphlets showing her in the arms of countless men. But in truth, her heart belonged to one. The storm of revolution began to rise in 1789. The Estates General convened. The Bastille fell, and Paris swelled with fury. Bread was scarce. Children cried in hunger, and the people looked to Versailles with rage. In October, thousands of women marched on the palace, demanding bread, demanding justice. The mob broke through the gates, slaughtered guards, and stormed the queen's chambers. Marie Antoinette barely escaped with her life, fleeing half-dressed through hidden passages to find safety beside her husband. Versailles was no longer safe. The royal family was forced to Paris, where they lived under watch at the Tuileries Palace. Every move was monitored. Every word, every gesture was twisted into rumor and accusation. And yet, through it all, Axel von Fersen remained near. He visited discreetly. He wrote in secret. And above all, he planned. He became not only her confidant, but her rescuer. In 1791, a daring plan was hatched. The royal family would flee Paris, escape to Montmedy, and rally loyalist forces. It was Fersen who arranged the carriages, who disguised himself as a coachman, who rode at their side into the night. For a moment, freedom seemed within reach. But fate, once again, was cruel. Delays slowed their journey. At Varennes, they were recognized. The alarm was raised. The royal family was seized, dragged back to Paris in humiliation. The dream of escape was shattered. Fersen, heartbroken, returned to Sweden. But his devotion never wavered. Letters continued, filled with words hidden by codes, their meanings veiled but unmistakable in passion. As the revolution darkened, the king was tried and condemned. In January 1793, Louis XVI mounted the scaffold and met the guillotine. His death left Marie Antoinette a widow, a prisoner, and a target. In her lonely cell at the conciergerie, she awaited her fate. She had lost her husband, her children torn from her arms, her crown reduced to dust. And yet, in those final months, it is said she thought of him, the man who had risked everything for her, the man whose name she never spoke aloud, but whose letters she guarded like treasures. On October 16th, 1793, Marie Antoinette was led to the guillotine. Her hair shorn, her dress plain, she was no longer the glittering queen of Versailles, but a woman facing the end. She mounted the scaffold with dignity, and as the blade fell, so too ended the life of a queen, and with her, the last hope of a love that could never be. But what of Count Axel von Fersen? He lived on, tormented by memories, by what-ifs, by the ghost of a woman he could not save. He would speak little of her in public, but his writings betray a sorrow that lingered all his life. In 1810, he himself was murdered by a mob in Stockholm, torn apart in a frenzy, not unlike that which had consumed Paris years before. And so their story ends, not with triumph, but with tragedy. Two lives caught in the storm of history, two hearts bound by love, undone by revolution. Perhaps it was a romance, perhaps only a deep and loyal friendship. But whether or not their affair was consummated, the passion between Marie Antoinette and Axel von Fersen burned across decades, across wars, across the downfall of a monarchy. It is a reminder that behind every crown is a human heart, and behind every revolution, stories of love and loss too great to be forgotten. If you were moved by this tale, join us again tomorrow. Each day we uncover the scandals, the secrets, and the forgotten loves of history's most fascinating figures. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because tomorrow another story awaits.